Hey guys, it's Illia. Thank you so much for listening to the Jam Room podcast hosted by Sam and Illia. If you like us, please consider supporting our Patreon. You can find that in the YouTube description or in our podcast description or on our Instagram at JamRoomCast. Thank you so much, and now let's get into the episode.
Welcome back to the Jam Room podcast. I am Sam.
I'm Illia.
We're here in beautiful South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, with our friend Tyler. Welcome, Tyler. How you doing?
Hi, good to see you guys.
Appreciate you being here.
Thanks.
Tyler is a indie rock man of many talents. He is in all kinds of bands. Talents.
So Tyler's talents.
Yeah, we shortened it to talents. We figured you guys would pick up on that. It would save us some time.
I'm not sorry.
Yeah. Flower Shopping, Hillmouse, Rex Darling. What other bands? What am I missing? Barnwell.
Yeah, that Barnwell is technically still a thing. Mainly Hillmouse and Flower Shopping's back up at the moment, back up and running.
Yeah, you guys are putting out singles. It's awesome.
Yeah, new today actually.
Oh, really?
April 26th.
Oh, man.
Ross just put out another Flower Shopping single.
Very cool.
It's a very good song. Stream it on all platforms.
Oh man. Well, by now it's been out for a week.
Yeah, whenever this comes out,
Yeah.
it's already out either way. So
Yeah, it's true.
if you stream it enough, we might get $20. So please do
Great.
that.
Yep. Tyler, why don't you just kind of like fill people in on like your sort of musical background?
Yeah, sure. So I was a saxophone player in middle school, and I don't know why. I was just like, seems pretty cool to play an instrument, but I couldn't. I wanted to play trumpet. Don't know why, but I couldn't I couldn't buzz the mouthpiece. So they were like, no trumpet for you. So I played saxophone. But I grew up in Northeast Columbia on the same street as Chaz from Torrey Moi. And we would, hang out and skateboard after school every day. And then I went over to his house one day and he was playing Blink-182 covers on guitar. And I was like, that sounds cool. I want to play guitar. So I started playing guitar in 8th grade. Started my first band in 9th grade. That was the one that Alex McComb from Stagbriar was the lead singer of. And we were bad, really bad. We were called the 10 Pins.
Sure.
And we were not good. And then after that, I did a band called the Safe and Sound in high school that did fairly well locally for a little bit in early college. And then after that, it was about 2014 before I started doing like my own music again. That's when I started Barnwell, and that transformed into Hillmouse over the years because Barnwell became harder to sustain the older you get. You can't get 4 people in a room to write once a week a lot of times.
Yeah.
So I started doing Hillmouse just as a way to have my kind of my own project at all times.
Sure.
And Flower Shopping started up during Barnwell. Flower Shopping is the same folks that were Barnwell, but we just played Ross's songs, which were better than mine, to be honest. So it worked out.
He does write some great songs.
It's really great. This is just a podcast about how great Ross is.
Yeah, I'm down.
So,
I love that guy.
But yes, I mean, that's pretty much it. I've just kind of been, I think I played my first show in 2002. I don't know if y'all were born. And
I was born in 99. We're both
Yeah,
born in
okay,
99.
okay.
We're not that young.
You're close. Yeah, and then I've just been doing that ever since, around South Carolina and anywhere they'll have me, really.
Yeah. Awesome.
I this is always just fascinating to me, not to pick out this one piece of what you said.
Do it.
But I what I love about when kids start band is that you get told what instrument you can and can't play.
It's very weird.
But like, I guess it kind of like, because you were saying you couldn't like buzz the mouthpiece. So, but it's always been funny to me. I played orchestra, and they're like, you can do whatever you want in orchestra.
Maybe that's because, oh boy, the learning curve with string instruments, like orchestral string instruments for kids, is so steep. Like, you give it a month, and a kid on a saxophone can squeak out a hot cross buns that's not going to make you want to jump off a bridge, but someone learning to play violin is like,
it's rough.
It is a horrendous noise. And then once they do, it's beautiful. But like, maybe that's the difference. I don't know. But yeah, they tell you what to do. My brother actually plays drums, and he was learning drum kit before he went to middle school band, and they tried to make him play trombone. And I'm 5'8". He's shorter than I am now. He was like, he might have barely cracked 4.2 at that point, and they wanted him to stretch his arms and play trombone. I was like, what are you doing?
That's so funny.
So you're right. It is weird that they make you choose. And then, eventually I was like, well, guitar's more fun than saxophone. And then, Circle of Life. Now I wish I still played saxophone.
If you picked it up again, how would you do?
Pretty bad. I can't read sheet music that well anymore. Mm-hmm. I can figure it out, but it'll take too long. So I would need a lot of remembering time with saxophone.
Have you ever recorded saxophone on any Hillmouse stuff?
No. I've had some horns on there, but
I've noticed.
Yeah, but never any sax. I've had some help with that, but no sax so far. My buddy Tony Opus plays sax with Rex Darling on a few songs, so we have some saxophone live in some of the bands I play in.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's a great instrument. Hey kids, play the saxophone.
And guitar, and sing, and write music, and play drums.
Yeah, do all that.
Just do everything.
Make a TikTok, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever they do. Yeah.
So, speaking of horns and Hillmouse stuff, what is the process like for you deciding on how to add horns and like those random other instruments into your like indie rock songs?
Yeah, it kind of just depends on. Usually none of that is driving the song for me. It's usually supplemental, like it's just kind of there. Not always just for texture. Sometimes it's melodic too, but yeah. So it's never really like written with it in mind, like, oh, I'm gonna have a horn on this one, I'm gonna have strings on this one. It's usually more as the song fleshes out. It's just it needs to feel more full, and I don't want to just do that with like yet another track of a different guitar chord voicing, and that's when I'll try out some sounds like that. A lot of times it operates as the same function as like a synth pad behind, where it's just kind of there for. Sometimes it's very present. Sometimes it's one of those where you won't notice it unless you pulled it out, and you'd be like, something's not right here. Yeah. But yeah, so it's, for me at least, it's never the focal point. But I'm sure there's a ton of other bands that do it the opposite way.
Yeah. So do you normally record like real horns, or do you use like virtual instruments and stuff?
Real whenever I can.
Sure.
That's the preference, obviously. But yeah, I've used MIDI stuff before. A lot of it's really good, and some of it's just like, when I've used MIDI for instruments that I don't have handy, it's usually just a matter of like scheduling. I can't get anybody to come in, or somebody's not available, or I might not have the budget to pay somebody.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would do it for free, but I don't want to ask that of somebody that's not regularly playing on stuff, because it feels like a big ask, which that's a me problem. But but yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of really good, like, for lack of a better word, like fake instruments, patches and stuff, and like plugins, but the real ones are always the way to go whenever you can.
I definitely agree with that. It's kind of funny. I feel like I've heard that like a lot of the virtual instruments, like the better they get, the more they emulate all the little like artifacts and like imperfections of a real recording. Right. Like I was listening to a podcast where somebody was like talking about how somebody came in to track at the studio with this like beautiful grand piano, and then they were like disappointed by the microphone picking up like the dampener pedal sounds and like the bench creaking. It's like, that's why you record a real piano.
Yeah, you want that.
Eventually, like the plugins will have a little knob that's like piano bench creaking, like
that bums me out. I don't like that.
Yeah,
you're right, but I don't like that. That bums me out.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's. I mean, people do it because it's easier to manipulate in the mixing process.
Definitely.
And you have a lot of stuff where it's like people can't afford to go into a studio and track everything and like do.
Definitely.
Oh, that didn't come out the way we want. Let's go back and re-record it. They just drag and drop the MIDI thing instead. And I get that, but it's like, that's why that's why so many records sound so like sterile now.
Sure.
Not to be that guy about it, but a lot of them. That's one of the things I try to do with Kenny at Archer Avenue when I mix all the Hillmouse stuff, is because I'm tracking all of these instruments separately, and I'm playing most of them, so it's not like. It's not everybody in the room tracking together, but you want it to feel pretty live. You want it to feel like it's a band playing, and not, this like pristine. I don't want to. I'm gonna paraphrase a Jason Isbell quote I saw, or not Jason Isbell, Dave Cobb. I'll paraphrase him on this one. I don't want my song to feel like you're wearing a suit. Like that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like that. He said that about guitars. He said, I don't like wearing suits. I don't like playing guitars that feel like a suit.
Yeah.
Same with songs. Like I want it to feel real.
Yeah. Definitely.
Sam says a lot that he likes it when the song feels older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like all those little recording things that like you kind of want it to feel a little imperfect and human, you know?
Sure. Yeah. It's not. You can tell, like when you hear something that's just overproduced and too shiny, and it's just
Definitely.
Obviously there is a place for all of it. Like that works for certain things. The most definitive statement I'm willing to make on it is that if you've got guitar-based music or like any kind of like band, I don't think that's the way to go ever. But that's just me.
Definitely.
You can hear it when you're like, that's not how that person sounds for real. I don't know if everybody can hear it, but it bugs me.
Sure.
I think there's a certain place you pass, like when you like make your own music, that's just like now you can't unhear it.
Sure.
Like my mom and I spend way too much time analyzing how people sing the national anthem for sporting events.
Yeah.
Because she's taken me to voice lessons like forever. So we're standing in the living. You know how dads stand when they're watching a movie from 10 feet away
from the kitchen
reason.
that they said they didn't want to watch, and
Right.
they're like, I don't want to, but then they're just like standing behind you the whole time. You're like, you could sit down.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, that's how we watch the national anthem, and we're here everything.
Yes.
That's so
Have
funny.
you seen that little girl who sang it? I don't even know what the event was, but she's like, this is the part of the podcast where I describe a viral video that no one can see. This is great audio content. She's
Jason, pull
like,
that up.
she's like wearing all stars and stripes, and she's just like going. She's like, say like all the whole nine.
Oh yeah.
It's not as good as Fergie trying to do her weird like seductive national anthem, but
Fergie's national anthem is just permanently ingrained in my brain.
It's wonderful.
And
It's
it's
so
iconic.
bad. It's so bad. I love it so much. It's just anybody can sing a national anthem normal. Fergie decided to train wreck it.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, it's more fun. It's not good.
It's definitely more fun though. We all talked about it.
Or like the Kirk Hammett, like there's some video out there of Kirk Hammett like doing the Kirk Hammett thing with the national anthem.
Yeah.
And it's just like super
I
cringe
saw
and
that.
didn't sound
I hated
good.
that. It was like national anthem with some Guitar Center demo
like
sweeps.
pedal.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
I remember feeling like this is, since Kirk Hammett listens to the podcast for sure. No offense, Kirk.
He was
Kirk?
here.
Kirk?
Kirk, right? I think it's Kirk.
I don't know. I'm not a Metallica
Kirk
guy.
Hammett.
Either way, yeah, I felt like I was watching somebody try out an Ibanez at Guitar Center.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like he's better than me though. So
Oh, yeah.
Who am I to say?
No doubt. So describe like the process from when you start recording anything for a song to when you have like a finished product, because I know you do a lot of like home recording and you also work at studios like Archer Avenue in town.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, everybody does it a little differently, obviously, but I, especially with Hillmouse, because I've set it up intentionally to where it's basically just me. Like as long as I am around, I can still do Hillmouse, and that's so that I don't have to worry about, band members can't make it or do this. I can still have something going at all times. So because of that, I don't really have a band fund money wise. Like when we have a show, it might be completely different people playing that played at the last show. So I'm like, well, I got to pay these people out because that's the way to do it. And I'm not going to ask somebody who's not technically in a band to be like, hey, come work for free so that I can pay for t-shirts later. Like, so because of that, like I don't really have the money to track an entire record in a studio. That's expensive.
Definitely.
So I will usually write the song, like the structure of the song out, and figure out how I want the song to go. And I'll do like a scratch guitar and scratch vocal. And I mean scratch, like there's no lyrics written yet. There's a melody, but I'm like mumble singing on it, like, and I'll give that to the drummer. And I usually give them no notes because the people I've used are very good drummers. Seth Ely,
He's awesome.
for a long time. Blake Hunter is amazing. Nate Puzo is the drummer with Barnwell and still with Flower Shopping. They're just very good drummers. So I like to give them Emily McCollum played drums on 3 of the new Hillmouse songs.
She can play everything. She's so freaking talented. Oh my gosh.
Amazing musicians. And I'm very fortunate there where I give them no notes on purpose because I'm like, well, this is what I had in mind, but I kind of want to see what you think this song is. And sometimes they'll play a drum part and then it works exactly how I thought. And other times they'll try to do something I never would have thought of. And I go, oh, you're right. That's this kind of song. And then I'll change some stuff around. So we'll do that. We track the drums myself. Like we just have a set of drum mics and we try to find a good room and track those. And then I'll just record as I go and kind of write the song as it is recorded.
Sure.
And then
and this is all at home.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll track all that at my house. I have a little like home studio set up in my little weird tree house that I live in over in near Earlwood in Columbia.
Love the treehouse.
It does the job. And then, if there's instruments I can't play or instruments that other people play better, I'll have them come in and do those parts on there. And then usually the last thing I'll do is the vocal, the final vocal. And then I'll take all of those, everything that's tracked into Archer Avenue and Kenny McWilliams. He does the mixing for me and he operates kind of like a producer for a lot of it too. Yeah. Which is great. I've known Kenny for a while. And when I was doing the Barnwell stuff, we would kind of DIY a lot of it, and he would be like, come let me work on one of those Barnwell records. And I was like, well, okay. And then eventually I was like, you know what, let's do it. And we did it, and that's how I'm doing it from now on. Like, it's just, it makes a huge difference to have somebody who not only likes the music, but also is, friendly enough that we're friends. So he's not afraid to be like, that sucks. If it sucks. Yeah. Just have somebody there to kind of operate as a producer that knows what you're going for. And it makes a huge difference. It's night and day, honestly, from where I started with it.
Yeah, I feel like, obviously no one in this conversation is like a, studio recording engineer, but I feel like,
Speak especially for yourself, man.
You get picking up some hours at.
I'm Columbia's number 75 fake producer over here. So.
that's a good point. But I feel like, especially in the small town studio thing, a lot of recording engineers also end up acting like producers. I recorded with my band Laundry Dog. Shout out Laundry Dog. Here at the Jam Room.
This is the second Laundry Dog shout out on.
Yeah, we have a lot of them
in a row.
Yeah, but we record with Zach, and it's Zach had to kind of do the recording engineer thing and the producer thing, which I can't imagine is a very easy thing. But
no, it definitely is. Kenny will tell me because we'll do multiple songs in a day or two at a time, and I'll be like, okay, well, this one, everything is, I know it works, so we're just mixing it. And this one, I'm like, I tried this, it's in there, I don't know if it works, I don't know where it should go, and he'll be like, all right, give me a second and switch to producer mode. So it's definitely a different mindset for sure.
Yeah.
And not every engineer can operate like a producer, not every producer can operate like an engineer.
Sure.
Rick Rubin famously can't engineer.
Yeah, has no technical ability.
Yeah. So it's just a whole different skill set, and it's really awesome to have people in town who can do both.
Definitely.
Especially when you're not making a living off of it. You're just trying to get some art out there, and it can be very tough sometimes.
Sure. Yeah. So you said with Hillmouse, it is Hillmouse is Tyler Gordon and the people Tyler wants to work with. That kind of sounds how it.
More or less, yeah. Okay. Emily McCollum is a constant.
Okay.
I made the first Hillmouse record pretty much by myself with Seth on the drums. I don't know if anybody else tracked anything on. Oh, Desiree did some vocal harmonies. Desiree Richardson, wonderful musician. Death Ray Robin, streaming on all platforms. And Emily really liked that album and was like wanted to play with Hillmouse, and I was like, really? Okay, yeah, please do. You don't have to. You could just barge your way on the stage. Please come sing. And that's evolved into her playing guitar and singing and drums and so that's the constant is me and Emily.
Sure.
I will, if a show comes up and she can't make it, depending on the show, we may play it still. But everybody else, it's like a rotating cast of folks that play live.
Sure.
And it's all, we'll never play anything that's not recorded in some fashion. even if it's just a demo, so that way I can send it to everybody and go, here's the chords, here's the song.
Yeah.
You know, and they're all such good musicians that it's like, you don't have to play it like I did it. Like,
Sure.
if it sounds good, it sounds good.
Yeah.
And it's really fun. It's really cool to hear like different people come in and like put their spin on it.
Definitely.
And it keeps the live shows good. And it's all people who have been doing this for so long that like, I don't have any concerns about playing live or anything like that. I don't have to worry about is whoever's playing drums this show going to miss something. I can just perform, and that's it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because I love shows. That's why I do it. Playing live shows is the best.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like the live performance aspect of this is like definitely the thing that kind of keeps you hooked on it, you know, for sure.
Oh yeah, it's super. It's the most fun you can have.
Definitely.
I can have at least.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. What kind of advice would you give somebody in your position that is like wanting to, you know, play their original music, but also want to like bring in a band to play it live, but is mostly just like band leading and writing themselves? Like, somebody in that position, how would you advise them to like grow their band and band lead and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is it takes time. You have to. I mean, I've been at it for a good while now. I'm 75 years old. I look great for 75. But you figure out just how to work with people a little bit better. It is hard to do when you're doing it at first.
Sure.
Especially if you are new to writing your own songs, because you can be like, I want it this way, or you're not sure how you want things to do. So I think a lot of it is just work on your songs and make sure you know what you want from your own music, so that you can communicate that to other people. But also don't be like super rigid about it. Don't, you know, if you have somebody come in to play a song that you wrote and they have an idea that you didn't have, hear it out at least.
Yeah.
Especially if they're a talented musician, like let them do it. Trey Martin from Homemade Haircuts plays guitar with me a lot live for Hillmouse. And I always tell Trey, I'm just like, do whatever you want, man. Like,
he's awesome, man.
Like,
he's a great player.
Yeah. I mean, it helps when they're very good players, but I'm just like, you gotta, you know, the only thing I ever tell them is I always say, if I wrote a song and it sounds like another song to you, try and sneak that in live, because I think that's funny.
Sure.
Like we have a song where Trey always plays the melody from Part of Your World from Little Mermaid.
Nice.
At the end of it, because Ross actually is the one who pointed out. He's like, you know, that
so
chord progression is Little Mermaid, and I was like, oh, that's right.
That's hilarious.
Please sneak that in.
That's so funny. One of my first ever memories of like playing with you was I was like in, I think like early high school, and we played a Mount Horeb together.
Yeah,
briefly.
yeah.
And I just remember, and I didn't realize this until like way later in life, but I remember that you would always sneak in the riff from The Reason by Hoobastank.
I've been doing that bit for like 20 years.
It's so funny. I remember like I would see you play something on guitar, and I would look over and Josh Rabin was laughing. And I was like, why is Josh laughing? And then looking back on that like 10 years later, I'm like, that was The Reason by Hoobastank. That's what Tyler was doing this whole time.
Whenever I play church gigs, I would definitely try and like, because listen, no disrespect to anybody who likes church music, but I don't like it. I find it very boring, especially if you are playing like the rhythm guitar part.
Sure.
And that was always me, because I didn't ever want to learn how to do the like dotted eighth note U2 delay stuff. So I'd always play the rhythm part, and I was bored to tears. And so I would that was me entertaining myself. And I've been doing, however long Hoobastank has been a band, that's how long I've been doing the Hoobastank bit.
That's so funny.
And it's all for me. No one thinks it's funny anymore, if they ever did. And I love it.
That's so funny.
I still sneak it into stuff.
It's a signature. It's like it's like on a painting. That's like a little signature on the
I'll
side.
do that. Or I'll, literally anything. I remember when Old Town Road was like the big viral hit. We played a Barnwell show at Space Hall, which was at Taps several years ago, and it was like the week that Old Town Road was like the biggest thing in the world. And I think Ross snuck the melody from Old Town Road into like 4 songs in that show. And he was like, wouldn't that be funny? And I was like, do it as much as possible. Yes, be great. And no one's gonna really catch it.
Yeah.
But if they do, we're all gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm all for stuff like that. It's supposed to be fun. It's playing live is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, that's my high horse about live shows. Where I'm just like, how dare you? Like, people, it's hard to go see a show.
Sure.
It is. Like, People don't realize it, but it's, you're paying money to go to the show. You're driving there. You're finding parking. If you're older, you might have to get a babysitter. Like,
Sure.
Like, it takes a lot to go see a show, and how dare you get up there and suck,
Yeah, I hear you.
or at least not try and give people a good time.
Definitely.
Yeah, nobody. Sometimes certain genres are different, obviously, but I never want to play a show and have people be like, that guy thinks he's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I'm definitely a huge fan of like not taking yourself too seriously, you know?
Yeah.
And playing those riffs that's such a great way to kind of capitalize on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we've played Valerie at like,
every show,
every single gig we've just about ever played.
Yeah.
And
people ask, they're like, "Do you play Valerie?" It's like, yeah.
Of course we play Valerie. Have you heard Illia's voice?
We're a female-fronted band.
Of course we play Valerie. But there, like sometimes we'll play Valerie, and I'll try to like sneak in as many like melodies as possible, and like I'll ask Illia and Braden after the fact. I'm like, "How many did you guys pick up?" And they'll be like, "I heard 6." I was like, "I played 8. You missed 2 of them."
Or like in the talkback, we'll be like, "Sam, play this one." Like,
like Alphabet.
You always play the ABCs. You love the
yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Lion King fits in a lot of stuff for future reference.
I gotta try that.
Ooh.
The Allman Brothers. Like I forget.
yes.
Zach would know. I think Jessica. I don't know.
You
Anyways.
also do Sweet Child of Mine a lot.
Yeah, I did Sweet Child of Mine a lot.
Like very subtly too with Sweet Child of Mine. You've been getting real sneaky with that one.
Yeah, but
Allman Brothers works.
Yeah,
I prefer Pistachio Brothers myself.
Sure. Yeah.
That was an almond pun for those of you at home.
Really
this has been
enunciate
Tyler
on
on the
that.
podcast.
No, you're right. But I came up like learning to play shows. In Northeast Columbia, it was all like the Fork and Spoon Records folks. Back in the day, it was so like Chaz from Tori Moi and like those Lavender Whales with Aaron Graves and all them. That's where I learned to play shows at. And they like, Aaron would mess up a song in the first verse and just be like, all right, let's start over, like at a show. And like, that's who I learned to kind of emulate. It was like, yeah, no, this is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Like people are supposed to be here to have a good time.
Exactly.
They don't care if you start a song over, if you messed something up. Like if you wanted to hear it like it's on the record, you stay home and listen to the record.
Exactly.
And so it's like I keep saying, it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
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 Make it fun.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I always want to throw in, we don't do American Pie very often, but when we do, I always want to throw in it's so long.
It's like 7 verses or something.
Yeah.
Feels like 7.
There's the Star Wars Weird Al version of it.
Oh, yeah.
And
I
I
remember
always
that.
want to throw in verses from that one.
You should see if people are paying attention.
Yeah.
I do that at solo gigs. Like when I'm playing, sometimes there will be shows where they'll ask Hillmouse to play, and I'm like, well, I can't get the band. Like nobody's available. So if you want just like an opener, I'll come play solo. And I will, if it's one of those where it's like an acoustic set, so no one's really paying attention, I'll just like start doing anything to see if anyone turns around. I like to sneak Monster Mash in a lot.
Nice.
Like a really like soft Monster Mash.
I'd love to hear that.
And just, see what I can say from the microphone that'll get somebody to go, what? Because that's, when it's just me, it's a little bit different. Obviously, the dynamic is different. It's half crowd work, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's so much of gigs is, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine about this recently, and I was like, this is a personality flaw. I know this is not the right way to be, but that's how it is. It's like if you're at a show and you are being the worst in the audience, you are now a target.
Oh, yeah.
And this is no longer a Hillmouse show. This is now the roast of that guy. Mm-hmm. And is that should I just be kind and play the show normal? Yes, I should. But it's like softball. Mm-hmm. A drunk guy that's screaming at your show and being a jerk in between songs. It is t-ball. Softball's a bad analogy because softball is difficult. It's t-ball. It's too easy. You just have to. You have to say something about it.
Yeah.
The microphone privilege is so fun.
The absolute audacity and like weird kind of arrogance of any performer to be like, I have the microphone, listen to for the next 30 minutes. I'm in charge of this. It's insane. We're all sociopaths, I think.
What's crazy, so we've started, obviously, like, it's a little different because we do a lot of cover gigs instead of, like, original music stuff. But I think people screaming Freebird is pretty universal, I feel like.
Yeah, I still get that from time to time.
Yeah. But I think, I don't know if we talked on the podcast about this, but we instituted the Freebird jar recently, which is where, where people will, like,
every time you say Freebird, you have to put $1 in the jar, and that doesn't mean that you put enough money in there and then we play it. It's just a swear jar.
Yeah,
that's great. That's what I thought it was. I had a friend who had a wagon wheel bucket, and
that's good.
For every gig, he'd change the price and be like $300, and I'll play wagon wheel, like that kind of thing.
I'm at least kind of willing to play wagon wheel, but I will not play Freebird. I'm not going to learn it.
Yeah.
I will not play wagon wheel. But I will. If someone, I have little like stage bits that I'll do all the time, and someone yells Freebird, I'll usually just be like security, or like you do something like that where it's like, okay, I acknowledged it. Yeah, we had our thing. Can we?
Yeah.
Right. Can you drop it now?
Yeah, and I'm not like, oh, that's not cool, man. Don't yell Freebird. Like, whatever. Maybe they like the music.
Well, and my thing is like the Freebird jar is great. First of all, people surprisingly will actually like comply and put money in the jar.
That's funny. Yeah.
But
they'll put a 20 in. We're like, you can say Freebird 20 times.
But we're not gonna play it. That's pretty
great.
funny. But I think it's fun because it's like, if they're willing to like, oh, Freebird, I'm making this stupid joke of yelling Freebird at a show. It's like, okay, well, we're making this joke of you paying us money, so you have to like play the game.
There are a lot of people, particularly those of the Caucasian persuasion, really love having a few slippery American cocktails and deciding that they are now part of the show. It's like, thanks for coming out to see the Sam and Illia band featuring this guy, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it feels sometimes.
It can also be a good way to like break the tension, I feel like.
It absolutely can. All of this, everything I'm saying fully depends on the gig. It depends on the show and the vibe of the show and like how it's going and things like that. Yeah. There are shows where I'm more than willing to go back and forth with the audience because that's just the vibe of the show. And then there's other shows where it's like, this isn't like, you are clearly like, if you want to perform, start a band and perform, but like that's not what we're here for right now. And there's a weird like dynamic I've noticed with a lot of folks whose primary concert experience is like the big stadium shows, like the Taylor Swift shows and like all that, where they are part of it. Like she does the thing with like the wristbands that light up and like all that stuff. And so they'll go to like smaller shows and operate the same way. And it's not like a bad thing. It's just, it's kind of like a new thing I've seen lately. And you just kind of have to get used to it and be like, oh, they're very enthusiastic and that's great. Like as much as I, will complain about somebody being a jerk in between songs, it's awesome when somebody is like yelling about how much they're having a great time,
Definitely.
It's true.
Yeah, no kidding.
At Breakers, we had this dude that was just straight up bullying me, was being awful. I really wanted to call him out, but there was a girl there with him and I didn't want to make it worse for her. But I would mess with him on the mic and all the girls were like, he's so weird, like get him out of here.
I've seen some people get thrown out of shows before and it's always uncomfortable.
I really wanted to get him thrown out. But again, I didn't want to make it worse for my girl. That was because she was really enthusiastic and she and her friend were like great. I'm like, I'm here for the girls.
That's a calculated risk. It's always there's Pete Holmes said something about this on a podcast I was listening to one time where he was talking about performing stand-up with like a rowdy bachelorette party in the corner. He likened it to you're doing something and like you notice that over in the corner that like the bottom of the curtains are on fire and it's like starting to get a little bit more on fire, like it's starting to get worse, but it's not, you don't need to rush over there yet. Like somebody will get to it, it'll get situated, and you just have to keep focused and do the thing. I think about that a lot, particularly when you're playing and it's just people talking. Like that's gonna happen. Especially if you're loud. Like that doesn't bother me. If it's like I've played seated acoustic shows before where the audience is just like
oh yeah, I've been there.
That's rough because I'm watching people's sets before me and I'm like these. Particularly during COVID, I was bringing some folks who hadn't really played a lot yet to these like small shows because it was like an opportunity to get people into stuff. It was like, talk during my set all you want. I'm just gonna get up there and play some dumb songs I've been playing for 20 years. But like, this is this person's like first show.
Yeah.
Like, don't be a dick. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. Oh, man.
I wanted to ask you about, because you mentioned earlier, kind of like deciding what you want to sound like, and then going into the writing process.
Sure.
How did you decide? How did that kind of come about? Like, what your sound was going to become?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of didn't decide. Like, it just kind of, it's just what I sound like. Like, it's a cliche, I guess, but it's like, you know, it's was it Walk the Line, where he's like, I play slow because I can't play faster.
It's fun.
Like, it's kind of that. Like, I grew up on, you know, early Weezer and Bright Eyes and Rilo Kiley and all these like indie bands from the late 90s, early 2000s. And that has definitely just kind of stayed in me for a long time. And I've always been very melody driven, where, you know, I'm not, it doesn't always have to have like a hook or a chorus or whatever, but it's very melody based. And guitar is the only instrument I can play well enough to write on. So they're all guitar based songs. As far as like deciding on the sound, it kind of just, I'll find the structure of the song first, and that'll kind of dictate it. I rarely write around a guitar riff. It's almost always around a vocal melody. And then every now and then, though, there'll be the thing where it's like, oh, I want, you know, this crazy, weird little guitar sound to be a song. And then you have to figure that out. And so the sound of the song, for me at least, the like style of it is dependent on what that vocal melody is going to be.
Yeah.
Like if that sounds dumb with a big distorted guitar, then let's pull it back and see if it's a softer song, like that kind of thing. So like I just finished a Hillmouse record that'll be coming out I think early September, and it's one or two that are different, like not quite as power poppy as I've done recently, and the rest, and a lot of them are. So it's very much a song by song basis for me. With Barnwell, it was a lot of like intentionally saying like we'd play something and we'd be like, oh, we don't want it to be too much this. And so we'd pull back and we'd change it. We didn't want songs to be too like power pop, so we would pull back to a different kind of thing or something like that. And that's the you know, the wonderful thing about a band where you all write together is you get everybody's input and style in there, and it's really, that's why Barnwell stopped, because it started like Hillmouse.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, it was the Bright Eyes of it all. It's, you know, what's the other guy? What's the meme? Tame Impala. Do you know it's just one guy? So yeah, it's where it's just one guy and everybody's, you know, recording parts with me and playing live, and then it evolved into the same four guys forever and writing together. And I was like, once that became harder to do, it was like, well, that's not Barnwell if it's just me now.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah,
that's a hard.
The songs are, you know, every bit as much them as they were me. So it's like, I don't want to just keep calling it Barnwell and write and do it all myself mostly. Like
Definitely.
that's, so that's why I switched a little bit. But you can like they're in the same family tree. Like you can hear it.
Yeah.
If you listen to a Barnwell record and listen to a Hillmouse record, you know, they're not drastically different style wise. They still sound like songs I wrote. But yeah, it's. I feel like when you're in a band, that like decision of we're gonna sound like this, when it's set members and you're writing together, that's a discussion that happens where you're like, okay, do we want to be a band that is this? Do we want to be a punk band? Are we? And usually that's people liking the same kinds of music and getting together and writing it. But a lot of times, you know, when you're doing it on your own, and sometimes with bands too, it's song by song. You know, it's like, oh, this kind of sounds like a alt country kind of almost Band of Horses sound of song, or like this kind of sounds like a Pedro the Lion song, or like something like that. And then I always say, I'm not. Hopefully, this doesn't sound like I'm tooting my own horn here, but if you're a good writer, however you go about that, when you're done, it'll still sound like your song.
Yeah, definitely.
And that also goes into, you know, putting an album together where it's like I've got songs that still sound like Hillmouse songs, but they didn't fit with this last set. So they're not on the album. They're just not quite the right sound to go with the rest of those. So you can stay, I feel like people get stuck where they're like, I'm a emo band, we're a alternative band, and like you can still do that and like be drastically different from song to the other. Yeah. And if you know what you're doing and you're confident in it and you're good at it, it'll still sound like the same band.
Yeah, definitely.
Tori Ma is a fantastic example of that. Chaz puts out, every record is so different from the last one, like sound wise and genre wise, but they all sound like Toro records.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's ultimately the goal, or should be the goal.
Yeah.
It just seems really dull to be like, I only write this kind of song.
Sure. Yeah. So I think you touched on it a little bit, but like in your mind, how do you differentiate like the album coming out? You said this fall, right? How do you differentiate that album from your other work with Hillmouse?
I tried some new stuff on this one, like instrumentation wise. The last Hillmouse album was very kind of big and upbeat the whole time. And a lot of that was intentional because the first Hillmouse album was mostly songs I had left over that didn't work for Barnwell. And we were playing them live and we were having, there just weren't that many like fun songs for live. And so I wrote a bunch that would be fun to play live on the last Hillmouse record. That was on purpose. And then this one was more just like, anything kind of goes as far as because I didn't have it in my mind that I wanted every song to be like upbeat and fun. So I took some for what for me are some swings in terms of song structure and instrumentation that are different, very different from the last album. I played bass on one song on this album. Sam played bass on two of them.
Oh yeah.
I farmed out some of the instruments that I'm not as good at, that I might have just tried to work my way through on the last couple of Hillmouse releases. And this time I was just like, we're gonna take our time. I'm gonna make sure it's right before it's done. I would usually go in and say, I don't want to have to spend more than this much money at the studio. I want to wait to put the record out. I don't want to do that. This time I was just like, it's done when it's done. Which is how you should do it. Take your time. Yeah. Don't rush it. It's never really done, but there's always going to be something where you're like, I wish I'd have put that on the album. And I had a lot more help with like input from folks this time around, where I had Emily come in and play guitar on one of the songs, and that's a good thing to do if you're having people come and play on your songs like we were talking about earlier. Once you know how these people play, you can go like, when I was writing the songs and getting ready, I'd go like, okay, this feels like it's going to be this kind of song. I know how Emily plays guitar and that would sound great on this. Yeah. Or I know how this person plays bass, or like the songs that Emily plays drums on versus the songs that Blake plays drums on the album were very intentional. It was like this, I know their styles, and like this would be a really good Emily drum song. This would be a really good Blake drum song. Yeah. And that wasn't feasible with the first two Hillmouse records because I didn't know their styles as well. And also Seth played drums on the first two Hillmouse records. I'm very fortunate to have a lot of really good musicians around me, and they're you can rely on them to do a lot of stuff. And, everybody's on this new Hillmouse record. Emily's all over it, obviously. Blake's on there. Sam plays two songs on bass. Paisley Marie, the Birdwalker, streaming on all platforms. She plays bass on two of the songs. Lanier Smith from Bones Hamilton and Rex Darling, she plays bass on two of the songs. Jeremy Smith, no relation as far as I know, who's part of some wonderful Charlotte bands, like $1,000 Movie and Crenshaw Pentecostal, and bass player for John Mark McMillan. He plays bass on two of the songs. Like, people were just really kind to like help me out with some of these things. Michael Gutschel plays keys on a couple of them. Nice. And then Catherine Hunsinger has some cello on one and sings vocals on some of them as well. So it's just, I decided that I was going to take my time and farm out the parts that I was like, this is not my specialty. I'm not going to force that. So that's the main difference, is just like trying some stuff I hadn't tried before. We have a whole song that's baritone guitar, basically. Nice. Which sounds, for anyone who doesn't play guitar, that sounds like a whole different instrument. It's kind of not. Kind of is, but it's kind of not, you know? Sure.
It's the same chord shapes, just a fourth
More
down.
or less, yeah. There's some open string stuff that's different, but it's like, the only thing if you're a dummy like me, the only real difference is you have to sit there and think real hard when you're trying to write out the chord chart for the person to come in and play on the song.
It's funny.
So I'm like, I don't know. This is what a G chord is like on a regular guitar. I don't know what. And then you have to think. And then I should have just texted Ross or John.
What
Vale,
am I doing right now, Ross?
Yeah, or John Vale, and I will do that with both of those guys.
Sure.
I'll send them pictures of my hand on the guitar and be like, "What's this chord?
What is this?"
And it's usually something I should have known. But
that's funny. I'm sure Ross is like, "Oh, it's a D sharp 9, flat 5, add 13."
It's a Q7 12 over 6 chord.
Yep.
That's
funny.
With a, I don't even know. It's early in the morning.
Yeah, something like that. Illia,
Sam is that for me, and I don't know anything, so I'm just like, if it sounds weird to me, so I'm like, what is it actually? Is it as weird as I think it is?
It's funny. Illia would just like to ask the final question.
Excuse me.
The final.
The final question.
The most important question of the whole podcast.
We just like to ask about your favorite local spots.
Nice.
So I am under-caffeinated. If you were going to go get some coffee right now, where would you go?
I hate coffee.
Wow.
Oh, man.
I know. I'll just go now. No, I don't like the taste of it. I think it tastes like if dirt could expire. And
Wow.
Oh my gosh,
so I do not drink coffee, but I patronize the coffee shops because they have other things than just coffee. Curiosity is great.
What do you get there?
Just tea, or a snack. Or I'll buy most of the local coffee shops, they have like their own ground coffee, like they'll sell. I'll buy that as gifts for people. But yeah, Curiosity is close to me, so I go there the most often.
It's a nice spot too.
Yeah, Inda is not far from me in Cottontown. So that's, they all make a good tea,
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I'm certainly not the authority on that. I try when it comes to local stuff, and thankfully we don't have this problem that much in Columbia proper, at least, like downtown Columbia.
Yeah.
You can try to patronize the people that are doing it right, and not out there saying awful stuff about people, and you try to support the right causes, and you try to find the businesses that are making the community better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And patronize them. It's weird how patronize is a good thing in one context and bad in the other. I have an English degree. But yeah, so coffee shop, not the authority, but they got some good tea and some good scones.
So much of coffee shops too is atmosphere. So
vibe.
Yeah, you're having a good time. There's a Bible study in the corner usually. Not at all of them. Inda, definitely.
Definitely.
There's always a Bible study at Inda.
Love Loveland, but definitely Loveland.
Yeah, and then there's Curiosity. There's always somebody drawing something in the corner. It's very artistic and cool. And we've played shows there in the past, and they're really great. They're very supportive of the art community in Columbia and everything.
Sure.
Cool.
What about a drink, like bar, late night kind of hangs?
I'm usually if I'm not at New Brooklyn for a show, Transmission is awesome.
Oh yeah. We get that a lot.
Yeah, I used to go to Warmouth. I haven't been to Warmouth in a while, but David Adedican was the bartender there when I used to go. I think where is he at now? Dragon Room, I want to say.
Ooh.
I'm sorry if that's wrong, David. If you're listening, I love David Adedicans. All the Adedicans are wonderful people. But he makes great drinks wherever he's at right now. I should have known, and I should be getting his drinks. You should go get his drinks. But yeah, Transmission's a great spot, especially now that the Wig's closed. Rip in peace, the Wig.
We get that a lot too.
Yeah.
The Hoot, though, is on Rosewood.
It's true.
Also really great.
Really good spot.
Definitely
So I'll go there for that a lot. If you just want a beer, there's plenty of places to do that. But the Hangar has very good stuff that not a lot of places have. Wico is awesome.
I call it Wecco, but I think they're both valid.
I think they call it Wico, but I see where you're going with Wecco because it's West Columbia, not West Columbia. So I get it, but I call it Wico.
I go
If it's
Waco.
how they call it,
so-
I'll call it
Waco, that's a whole different. That's in Texas, and if you're of a certain age like I am, that has a whole different connotation when people
they got a
bring up
good cult
Waco.
out there.
But yeah, the folks who own Waco and work there are awesome. Like everybody is just really good for the town. So
Definitely.
it's
Cool.
good to
Nice.
support it.
And then meal.
Oh yeah.
Oh, a meal. God,
A nice meal.
I eat like a toddler. Like I have such terrible taste in food. I use that as an analogy for my music a lot. Where like I feel like I make chicken tender music, but I just like I hope that I am like I'm not making fusion, you know.
That's so funny.
I'm not making fancy new stuff you've never heard. I feel like my music is chicken fingers, but I hope it's like transmission tendies.
Yeah, I was about to say, if anything, it's
Yeah.
the transmission.
I hope it's like the real good chicken fingers. But no, the transmission does make amazing food, not just their chicken.
They do.
I went to Tacos Nayarit recently for the first time.
Where's that?
Oh God, it's over. I don't remember. Look it up. I'm probably saying it wrong. Tacos Nayarit. They're opening up a new location. It's like Percival Road, I think. So it's like a little bit of a drive, but they're opening up one closer. It was unreal. Like it's so good.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's stupid how good it is. It doesn't make sense. And so go there. Yeah.
Good to know.
All right.
Well, this has been Tyler Gordon. Thank you for being here. Check out all his music. Hillmouse, Barnwell.
Streaming on all platforms.
Yeah,
all of
streaming
them.
on all platforms.
All of them. Are you
Every
on Tidal?
single-
Because I am.
We've had a lot of fun. Thank you to the Jam Room for hosting this via their location and recording equipment and audio production. Zach Bingham, our engineer. Thank you, JB Creative Studio. That's Jason Bozeman behind the camera, making all the video and lighting look freaking amazing. He's just incredible at everything he does. Hire him for any digital kind of stuff. We are Sam and Illia. Find us online at Sam and ILLIA. We play all around Columbia. We do private events, weddings, all this stuff. Any place where it would make sense to have some cover band music. That's us. We also got a new wedding band at Golden. What is it? It's Golden Hour Groove. Just look up Golden Hour Groove or look at our Instagram. We also have a Patreon. If you like the podcast and you want to help put this on, we'd really appreciate it. It's very cheap. It's $7 a month, less than a cup of coffee, depending on what kind of coffee you like drinking. I think that about wraps it up. Thanks for listening. See y'all next time.
Bye.